Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you happen to be joining us from. My name's Andy, and on behalf of the Charlotte Area SharePoint User Group, I want to welcome you to our February 2021 meeting. This is going to be a really awesome meeting. We're going to do SharePoint Online and Microsoft List Formatting, hot off the press. We've got two great presenters lined up for you here this evening, April and David. I'm going to turn things over to them in just a couple of minutes, but got a few news and announcements from the Charlotte Area SharePoint User Group that want to share as we get started. For some of you, this might be your first time joining us. We do all of our meetings online. When we're in person, we do them hybrid as well. But we do record our meetings. We will post those on our YouTube channel afterwards. If you want to go back and revisit the meeting, it will be out there. We've got a number of different places for you to engage with us. If you're here tonight, you probably registered through Meetup. Thank you. We do post all of our upcoming events through there. We try to get them out as early as we can. We've got the next two events already scheduled. We'll talk more about those in just a moment. We're really easy to find on Meetup. We got a custom URL. It's CASUG.org. So feel free to connect with us through there. That's also a great community to communicate with us. You'll find us also on just about every social media platform out there. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, as well as on YouTube. And we even have a private Yammer group that you can be a part of if you want to communicate kind of internally with us. As far as some of the best places to communicate with us, definitely Meetup, but also Twitter and Facebook. Twitter and YouTube. Those are kind of the big ones right now. We are very active in LinkedIn and Facebook as well, but most of our traffic is coming through Meetup and through Twitter. So feel free to engage with us. I will make these links available for those of you that are here in the chat list. I'll make it available inside of the chat. And then when we post the video on YouTube, I'll make sure all these links are there on the YouTube channel as well. So next event will be in March. We have an awesome presenter lined up. Sarah Hasse will be doing a talk about women in technology leadership, a growth story. Sarah is an amazing presenter. She's a friend of mine, colleague of the community for a number of years now. This is one you don't want to miss. So definitely, if you have not signed up for this one, head over to Meetup, casug.org. Go ahead and get registered for that one. You're not going to want to miss this talk. Sarah is an absolute star, and this one's going to be really, really good. I'm really excited to have Sarah presenting virtually for us in March. We do have one lined up for April. I believe Kelly and Kathy are working on something having to do with project management and Microsoft 365. So this one's going to be a little bit more on kind of the PM side coming up in April. We are opening the call for speakers for remaining spots for the rest of the year. A few people have already reached out. We're just kind of working through that. But if you have something you're interested in, either speaking about or you want us to maybe find somebody to speak about it, let us know. We try to include the community in all the topics that we present. And so we'll do our best to kind of meet that need and get those topics out there. But also, like, we've got a couple of big events coming up over the next couple of months. So we get the spring Microsoft Ignite. There's probably going to be some cool things announced there. And then there's a couple of virtual conferences right after that. So we're probably going to have a couple of cool things pop up after that. We'll see about getting some follow-up on that over the summer. All right, so next up, I want to just take a couple of minutes, and we have Jennifer Ray here from Apparo, and this is a nonprofit for nonprofits. I'm going to turn things over to Jennifer here in just a moment, but Jennifer, through Kelly, reached out to us, and they are looking for some volunteers in the SharePoint space in the Charlotte and surrounding areas. I believe, already had an announcement made about this. We've had some people already kind of connect in on this. So I'm going to turn things over to Jennifer and let her speak about this for just the next couple of minutes.
Thank you so much, Andy. I sure do appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys giving me just a few moments of your valuable time to share this opportunity with you and perhaps generate some interest. As Andy mentioned, the way I became connected with your group is through Kelly Jones, who has just been an extraordinary volunteer for us. And the us part is Apparo, which is the nonprofit that I'm affiliated with. We're located here in Charlotte, and we are a nonprofit that serves other nonprofits. And the space we work in is technology. So essentially the way it works is nonprofits approach us and say, I need help with technology, which, as you can imagine, is a big, okay, what do you mean? It's our job at technology, at Apparo, to help figure out, well, what do they mean by they need help with technology? And then once we decide, what it is they're asking for, then we go out into the corporate community and source skilled volunteers to come to the table to help resolve questions, maybe app selection, maybe setup of SharePoint or whatnot. So it's all about bringing technology solutions to local nonprofits. The way Apparo is able to do that is by reaching out to experts such as you guys to help bring your expertise to the table. And what we do is bring resources that these nonprofits would never have access to otherwise. Their budgets are limited, their staff is limited, bandwidth is limited, everything's limited, right? So it's all about trying to bring resources to folks who otherwise would not have access to them. What I'm here to ask you about today in terms of your interest is relative to what's called the GAIN program. This is an award program that Apparo is managing that's funded by Lowe's. And essentially, the way this partnership works is Lowe's is funding our work to go out into the community and walk alongside 10 nonprofits to upfit their technology to modern computers and so forth, and to migrate them over to the cloud. We already had this project in the works before COVID hit. And when COVID hit and our local nonprofits began to understand the utter necessity of being able to work remotely, it just ramped up demand for this kind of work. So the GAIN program, as I mentioned, 10 nonprofits. It was a competitive process. We sourced local CXOs to review applications and choose 10 nonprofits to participate. We have gone through our first phase, which is getting a tech plan in place. We are on the approach to the next phase, which is to get them set up in SharePoint. And what I mean by that is establish a basic SharePoint site for file storage. We're not worried about going into sophisticated, complex systems. That's not the goal. The goal is to help these guys just get a basic SharePoint setup. And actually, Andy, if you'll slip on to the next slide, it'll sort of give you just a couple of high points on what we're looking for. The time frame here is, I say March to June, it's really April to June. I put March in there because our early meetings will take place then. But essentially what this means is that if you stepped up to volunteer, we would provide all the logistics, all the templates, all the training, all the background work that goes into pulling this together. We just need experts at the table to literally execute on the basic file structure setup, helping the nonprofit understand, hey, before you move that stuff over to SharePoint, clean up that data. Understand what's appropriate to archive and what you want to move with you. We're not setting up fancy communication sites, external communication sites, none of that. It's just basic file storage. And then they need a little bit of guidance in how to actually move their information over to SharePoint. So we ask volunteers, give them a couple of examples. Oh, you got these files stored in Box? Okay, this is how we're going to take them from Box and get them to SharePoint, or wherever it is that they're storing information. The idea is to show them how to do their data cleanup, how to do the migration, not to do it all for them, but to teach them to fish. That's really our goal at Apparo, is teach people how to do something so they can take it to the next level themselves. And then they can come back to us if they need, additional help. So anyway, this particular project is all about setting up SharePoint. These nonprofits are small, 10 staff or less. Their data configurations are not complex in the least. In fact, their data footprint's probably not very big, most of them. So these are not sophisticated, complex operations. But nonetheless, we still need experts to come in and help get these things set up. As you can see from our volunteer skill set, essentially what we're looking for is folks who have experience with SharePoint and who understand the basics on administration. We don't have the luxury of training our volunteers to execute on this. We need volunteers to come to the table who already have these skills, and we can just sort of frame up the timeline and what the templates are that we're working with, and then we'll be off to the races. So that's kind of a 10,000-foot view of what we do and what we're looking for. Let me just get quiet for a moment and open the floor. Any clarifications, any questions, any other information I might provide just to sort of whet your appetite for this type of work?
Do you have to geographically be in your area?
No, you do not. This is all handled remotely.
Hey, Jennifer, this is Matthew. I had a question. So can we use tools like the free migration tool that Microsoft provides to us?
You can if you need to.
Okay.
You may not even need to. I mean, it may literally, in some cases, it literally is going to be a copy and a paste. I mean, it's in some cases, but yes, that it certainly is an option.
And you have all.
I think what we'll find is that these are not going to be highly technical migrations.
And you have all the requirements, like it needs to be locked down for certain users, external access, what type of sharing and whatnot.
Right. What we do is, as part of the managing the project piece, we'll participate in those regular meetings. And what we do is make sure that the nonprofit understands, what has to happen once the SharePoint site is in place and we start moving data, and what are your cutoffs, and who can have access to what, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we help set all that expectation and detail in place.
And then we'd be okay with, like, I guess, synchronize or utilizing the OneDrive client to synchronize the local shares for them?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. I don't think we'll have any issues with that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Other questions or clarifications?
Hey Jennifer, this is Sanke. Like, do you mind to provide your next step or any contact information for you, right? Like, so I can connect with you later. Because
yes, so I'm not sure if Andy sends out the deck when you get access to the recording. I put the links in this deck. However, I'll be happy to provide my contact details to Andy or directly to anybody that's interested in them. You're certainly welcome to reach out to me if you'd like to. I'll put my email address in chat right now. And
okay.
Then if anybody's interested, then certainly feel free.
Thank you.
We sent out an email notification a couple of weeks ago with some of the contact information in it. I'll be sure to follow up in the next couple of days with that same information for anybody who is interested. Also, for those of you who are here attending the meeting live tonight, you're in a Microsoft Teams chat, basically. So if you look at the chat window up at the top, you're going to see a file tab. I'll post the presentation documents there as well. So you'll be able to get that as a follow-up also. And as you see, Jennifer has already posted her contact information in the chat window as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Indeed. Yeah, so, again, I thank you guys for your time just to share this volunteer opportunity with you. If you're interested in volunteering, but maybe the SharePoint piece doesn't quite resonate with you, I encourage you, visit our website. Everything we do with nonprofits is volunteer-based. It's all about sourcing experts to share what they know with nonprofits who don't know these things. So if you have interest beyond SharePoint, by all means, visit our website, reach out to me. We'd be more than happy to help you. And I hope I hope this is okay, Kelly. If you want to know what it's like to work with Apparo, Kelly Jones is a person who has volunteered for us, and you know, if you want to ask somebody, hey, what's it like to work with those folks over there, you know, he might be able to share some information with you about his experience and sort of what it's like to work with us. So be happy to give you guys references and whatnot if you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kelly. I sure appreciate it. Volunteer extraordinaire. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. I'm not going to take another moment away from this awesome topic. I'm anxious to listen in too. And yeah, thank you again. I really appreciate having an opportunity to share this with you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We will definitely post the contact and the follow-up information for the members of the community that are interested in this opportunity. But thank you for letting us know about this and for giving us kind of a 10,000-foot view into it here tonight. Look forward to having some of our community members reach out, volunteer, and hearing back and see how it goes.
That would be just awesome. We sure would appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Well, now we're going to transition over to the main event. We are really excited to have April Dunnam and David Warner joining us here this evening from various parts of the country. I think we are covering East Coast, the Midwest, and the West Coast in this event. So tonight we are going to be talking about SharePoint Online and Microsoft List Formatting. This is literally hot off the press. When I asked April a couple weeks ago if she would be interested in talking about this topic, we had just saw these controls start to roll out, and I believe April had just released a video on her YouTube channel about this. So this is some brand new technology. I know as soon as we announced it, Will, who is joining us here this evening, was like, wait, is this like what I covered last year? This is actually for forms. This is for the new form, the display form, and the edit form inside of a SharePoint list. And I know I speak for a number of members of the community when I say this is long overdue. This is something that many people have been requesting for many, many years now. So I'm really excited to hear about this topic. As I was reaching out to April, she's like, can I bring a friend? And I'm like, sure, the more the merrier. And so we are also bringing in David Warner, who is Microsoft MVP. He is also podcasts and vlogs and consults for Catapult. So he is also on the speaker circuit with us as well, the expert's expert. So a little bit of background about both of our speakers here tonight. I believe April has definitely spoken Charlotte, and David, I'm pretty sure you've spoken Charlotte within the last couple of years. Am I?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, we're
2018, I believe.
I think it may have been. Yeah, it feels so long ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it was you and Reza and David, kind of a package deal. All three of you descended on Charlotte for a SharePoint Saturday event. So we got some SharePoint Saturday alumni here with us this evening. So you both have been Microsoft MVPs. April, you are now working with Microsoft, correct? Yeah.
I'll interpretive dance while she's typing in what she's currently doing.
I'll have to use my speakerphone, so I hope I don't sound too bad. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Nope, sounds great.
There you are.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm having trouble with the headset. Yeah, so I joined Microsoft about a year ago now, so I can't be an MVP and an employee at the same time, unfortunately, but I'm happy to be here at Microsoft now.
You'll always be an
She's
MVP,
an
to
MVP
us.
in our hearts. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I don't want to take up too much time. I know you both have a number of different channels that you use to get out all this exciting information. For example, I mentioned April's YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, I will provide a link to that for everybody that's here this evening. And anybody who's viewing the recording a little bit later, check the description down below. We will make sure we get a link to April's YouTube channel. It is growing exponentially. She's well on her way to tens of thousands of subscribers. And I don't know where she comes up with all the time to put together all the awesome content that she is doing there between working for Microsoft, generating all the content, and in her after hours, I believe bands and karaoke and kind of everything in between.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure we post all of that content or that contact information out there. As I mentioned a moment ago, David, I know you are doing a number of different things between, I believe you've got a podcast, you've got the Microsoft PMP community, which April is also a part of, which is growing exponentially. What am I missing? What else are you involved in?
Yeah, do some blogging, do a lot of the PNP work. So April and I work together with Hugo Bernier and Emily Mancini on the Sharing is Caring initiative, which is really super awesome because it provides hands-on guidance for anyone in the community on a variety of topics across the M365 landscape. Shows them how to get involved, start contributing if they've never done it. You don't have to be a developer, and it's all free. It's all done under the PNP umbrella. So, you know, sharing is caring. We really want to provide that inclusive opportunity for everyone in the community to be part of and involved in the community. Also do a vlog, as you had mentioned, with Bo Cameron, another MVP. Community close-ups, we call it. It's kind of the personal view of members of the community. So we always have all these videos that talk tech and we get into the ones and zeros of our lives, but sometimes we don't really know each other, right? So that is to provide that personal perspective on who you are, where you grow up, what's your family, what your likes, what your dislikes, so that when we do go back to real life, seems so odd now, right? Real life events, we'll have a little more to talk about, and those in the community will know the other community members a little bit better.
So speaking of, how many coffees did you buy last year for our community members? For those of you that don't know, David was buying basically a coffee a day to kind of give back to the community virtually while we were in various stages of quarantine all across the world. I know I was a recipient out of the blue one day, so thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. You know, I
I
lost count, to be honest with you. It was up there, but it was a good thing. And actually, you know, I mean, we're still needing that smile, that random smile. So I appreciate that kind of segue because I'm getting ready to start it back up, but a little differently. Instead of me just randomly picking people, I'm going to look for members of the community to nominate other members of the community that made an impact in their life, and then I'll still buy the coffee. So I think it's a good way to kind of show the encouragement and the appreciation for those in the community through these troubling and, you know, frustrating times, and it shows how much we're really a family. So
that is awesome. Thank you for the coffee, and thank you for putting forth that initiative to kind of, you know, continue to pay it forward and to bring everyone together. I know that's really awesome. So I don't want to take any more time away from you. I know you've got some really cool stuff lined up. Again, on behalf of the Charlotte Area SharePoint User Group, thank you both for your time here tonight. And I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it over to you for SharePoint Online and Microsoft List Formatting, hot off the press.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to start by sharing my screen, so let me know when you can see it.
Coming through.
All right, excellent. So we take a bit of a transformer approach to list formatting. So we kind of call this SharePoint list formatting more than meets the eye, because really when you start looking at lists, they can be transformed. In Classic, we had what we had. They were lists, they were columns, they were data, they worked, they were functional, there was, you know, value to them. But now inside of the modern experience, which is not so young anymore, actually. It's been around, but we see the investment by Microsoft continues to be put into this technology to empower us as content authors to make a better experience using even just list data. So we're going to talk more about how we can transform that into this awesome experience, show you how to do things like column and view formatting, form formatting, etc. With a show of the hands, I think, because we have the hands feature, how many are just kind of getting newly adopted into list formatting or just getting started? Either haven't really played with this side of lists yet, or just kind of getting started. Okay, good. We've got a few. So excellent. So we're going to cover really from the ground up for you. We're not going to assume that you already have this extreme experience with that guy named JSON that we'll talk about. So we're going to take it from the ground up. Let's begin with who we are, though. My name is David Warner, as mentioned, MVP, member of the PNP team, work with Catapult Systems, Big sports fan, as you can see by the pictures, as well as the helmets behind me. This is real. It's not a team's background, but even bigger fan of the community. So love to collaborate, interact with everyone. Don't let this be the only time that we talk or communicate with one another. Don't hesitate to reach out. Would love to interact with you, as well as maybe work on some projects together. So there's my Twitter and my email. Would love to hear from you. Joining me today, of course, is my partner, April Dunnam. April?
Yeah, well, Andy pretty much gave us great intros, but yeah, April Dunnam, partner technical architect at Microsoft. I work with David on the PMP Sharing is Caring team with David, Hugo, and Emily. You can reach me on Twitter at April Dunnam, or on my YouTube channel also that Andy mentioned earlier.
All right, awesome. Thank you. All right, so what's on the agenda for today? We see Parker here donned out as Parker Prime, getting ready to show us some transformation opportunities with our lists. So we're going to begin by talking about some out-of-the-box SharePoint list features. We're going to see how they've changed a little bit from the classic experience, how there has been improvements. Even if you do 0 list formatting, they still are better than they were in classic. And they're good, but not amazing. And we'll discuss that a little bit. Then we're going to do a little bit of an overview on list formatting, what exactly it is, what's the landscape for it, how you can take advantage of it and understand what opportunities you have to enhance that experience for your users. Those two flavors, of course, will be column formatting and view formatting. We're going to cover form formatting as well, and we'll get into some list formatting resources that you can take home with you, some parting gifts, if you will, that you can begin using immediately. And then we're going to see exactly how in the modern experience, it's really been transformed. There is a way that you can utilize your list formatting experience to provide a quasi dashboard with virtually 0 development effort. So we're going to show you how to do that. So let's first start talking about out-of-the-box SharePoint list features. Now, what do they include? In the modern experience, well, now you've got quick edit, right? So remember in classic, you had to swap between new forms and edit forms. And when you're in the list, you're always having to refresh and go between them. No more. You can quick edit. You'll get the side panel come out to create things like new columns, edit the list data right there in line, either via quick edit mode or from the panel on the right, which we'll show you. So it's more like a single page app experience, right? You're no longer having to shift between multiple pages. And you can modify things about your columns. So you can add list columns, resize list columns. You're even given a little bit of a custom formatting experience, which April will dive deeper into when we get into that part of the demo. So let's dive right in. We're going to be very interactive. Now, what we don't want you to do is be overwhelmed. We're going to be using a construct called JSON. This is JavaScript object notation. It's what you use to write your list formatting definitions. We're going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting today because we want you to see that that's all you have to do to start taking advantage of list formatting. If you can Control-C, Control-V, you are empowered now to do custom list formatting, and we're going to show you how. So when you see some of the code we're writing or creating or copying and pasting, don't feel overwhelmed, but we want you to understand immediately. So we're going to be very demo heavy today. So let me go over to a browser. And this is a list that we have created, a very simple list. If we look at it, we just have very simple things, a number of text, a favorite column, good guys. These are of varying types of data, right? And so when we look at this, it's a list, right? Nothing great about it. But if I needed to edit this, typically I'd say, okay, edit. And in Classic, I would have to go to another page. But you see over here, what has happened is it's come out on the right for me to make those edits directly on the page, that single page app-like experience. So I can change Autobots to no, they're not a good guy. Of course, they're a good guy. I can say, yes, it's a favorite. I can save that. We see it immediately happens, right? And I can add a column. So if I wanted to add a column and just say this is a demo column, I can decide what kind of column type I want it to be and all of that. Now I can also increase the size of my column. So if I have something that's very long, if my title was very long, I can actually increase it right here and that persists. I can change where my columns show up. So I've moved text over there to the leftmost column next to title, but if I needed to move it to the end, I can do that and it immediately refreshes. So we're seeing improvements, right? If I need to create a new item, we get that same pop-out experience on the right where I can add the item immediately and it will just simply get added and refreshed right there on the page. Very powerful, certainly a welcomed improvement in the modern experience over the classic experience, but it not exactly transformer-like, is it? Well, if you remember maybe in the 80s, if you go back that far when you were a kid, you might remember there was a competitor to Transformers. Didn't quite look as sexy, not quite as cool. Anybody remember GoBots? It was like the off-brand of Transformers that your parents bought you if they didn't want to spend the money on the full-fledged Optimus Prime Transformers. Felt like it came out of a McDonald's Happy Meal box. Sort of what List experience is out of the box, right? It's good, it's better than it was in Classic, but it's certainly not super sexy. It's not something that you'd be super excited to show off because really it's just a storage mechanism for data. But what we do have is now list formatting in the modern experience. So we're going to talk about 3 flavors of that today. The first is column formatting, right here on the left. Now, when you think about column formatting, you literally is exactly what it's described as. It's just a simple column. Each of our list items are arranged in columns of data. And so when you're looking to change how that data looks, you're talking about column formatting, just in that singular column. Now, you're not changing the data when you do list formatting, whether it's column formatting, view formatting, or otherwise. You're only changing the way the data looks. So when you see us making changes today to the way that data looks, behind the scenes, we're not really changing the data, and you'll see that. So don't fear that you're going to disrupt the kind of data, and now I have to teach my users to input data in a new way. It's still data. So we're going to take things like a text field and turn it in and transform it into something completely different. But behind the scenes, still just a text field. When you edit it, still just a text field. So don't worry about that. So column formatting allows you to do controllable elements such as styling the content of the column. So if you have something in the column that represents data that can be used in another way, you can change that content. And to some degree, you can have a fabricated functionality created. And what do we mean by that? It means that the content is not functional in and of itself, but we're going to create list formatting definitions that make it functional, that actually bring it to life and interactive in a way that your users can now click on it or interact with it. So that's very powerful. View formatting, on the other side, is the entire row. So when you think about a view formatting experience, you're talking about not just individual columns, right? But you're talking about the entire row of data that spans all of the columns. So you're going to completely remove the view of all those columns for each row, and you're going to input exactly what you want. And you use a little bit HTML, use a little bit of CSS. So if you're comfortable in those spaces, then you're going to be very comfortable here. If you're not and you're just learning that, you're going to be comfortable too, because remember, Control-C, Control-V is your friend. We're going to show you exactly how you can start taking advantage of that immediately. With view formatting, you have control of the styling, just like you did with column. You have control of the entire list item, similar to column, but now you're looking at the whole list item. And again, with view formatting, a degree of functionality of content, you can create that fabricated functionality. With form formatting, which April will get into, we have controllable elements. You can style it. You can set the content of the header and the footer and the body. So now this really kind of ups that game, because now we're not only changing the way that content is displayed and consumed on a list, but now we're able to control the way that content is edited and added to the list. Very, very powerful. Been asked for a long, long time, and now it's here, and it's gonna just improve. What does this look like in practice, though? Functionally speaking, what does a column format look like? What does a view format look like, etc.? Well, let's start with just the out of the box. We kind of saw that, right? So here's an example of out of the box. We've got a title column, right? And we've got a Twitter column that displays the Twitter handle for a variety of community members. Basic list experience. This is familiar to all of us. There is nothing unique or magical about it at all. Column formatting, though, changes it a little bit. So now we're able to change the styling, the look and feel. So now we've taken that Twitter handle, we've pulled in the Twitter profile picture. A little bit more engaging. We're humans, and humans are visual creatures. We relate more to pictures and visuals than we do just simple words most of the time. And we may enjoy reading, but when it comes to consuming data, chances are things, if it can be visual, we're going to be more attracted to it, and it's going to be more pleasing to our eye. We see that here. And so we've taken that information. Now remember, behind the scenes, this is still just a text field. There's nothing that we've changed. We haven't made a picture here and pointed it at a library. This is still just a text field. And so when we edit this, we're still just editing text, so no worries there. View formatting. Now we've taken that information that is displayed here, some of which you can't see yet, such as the location information we see there on the right. And we've now, instead of just changing a single column like we did right here, we've changed the row, as we mentioned, right? We're editing and changing the way that the row looks. And so we're able to override that. We've pulled in the image. We've created a call to action for us to follow Chris Kent or Bo or Seb online on Twitter. And then we've also provided some information. And that could be a little picture, could be a map. We'll talk a little bit more about that pseudo functionality that we can create. So let's begin with column formatting. So I'm going to hand it over to April, where she's going to lead us into all the goodness that is column formatting.
All right, thanks, David. I am just trying to get my sharing to work. It seems like I'm having all kinds of Teams issues today. Should have tried this earlier. My share options aren't showing, so bear with me 1 minute. I am going to actually quit and rejoin and see if that will allow me to share. So I'll be right back.
No problem. Now, one of the things that you're going to find while we're waiting for April to come back in that we're going to talk about is some resources for you. The PNP community is one of the places where you can get some of those resources. We're going to have some links for you at the end, and April's going to even show those to you. But there is a whole host of free resources you can start using for no cost, and in fact improve upon and contribute back to. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we get closer. Awesome. Looks like you're back.
Yes, I'm back. That worked. Yay. Okay, so column formatting. So as David said, just like with list formatting, there's two different flavors of that, right? Same thing that we have here with column formatting. So we have that custom formatting to where we have a nice wizard-like experience that we can use and have limited control over changing the styling of our columns. So these can apply to different columns like data, choice, booleans, and others based on your data type. If we want to expand on that, though, that's a little bit limited on what we can do, but it's a good way to get started, using some out-of-the-box wizard-like experience. But we also have column formatting. So that's if you need to take that to the next level. That's where you would use that JSON stuff that David was talking about. So you'd actually put in some of this JSON code, completely transform that column. So you have way more control this way. And you can even reference other column content. So if I needed to change a status field based off of, a due date, and maybe show that something's overdue, reference other columns, we can do that with this column formatting advanced features. So we can do things like styling, Excel-like expressions, cross-column calculations, and all of that, even make things hyperlinks. So with that, this is best shown with a demo. So I'm going to open up our SharePoint site here, and we'll start looking at just the custom formatting side of it. What can we do with that wizard-like experience first? So we have a list here. We have a date, a choice, and a Boolean. Now let's take a look at the date first. If we want to apply some of this column formatting, all we have to do is click on the drop-down, go to column settings, and format this column. So this will give us our wizard experience. So we see we have an option here. It's recognized that we are on this date column, and I can choose an option here for format dates. So as soon as I click that, if you notice, it transformed my column here and highlighted everything in yellow. What I can do though, it will have an option here for edit styles. So if I click that, I can transform this and say, okay, if today is before today, if the current date is, then I can maybe have this be yellow. If it is today, I can have it be green, or if it's after today, I can have it be red. So I have complete control over these options. So I can click this style button here next to that, each one of these, and I can choose a different color. So maybe if it was before today, I might have that in red instead. So you can see as soon as I apply that, it updates on my list. And if it's today, I might have that in yellow. And if it's after today, maybe green, whatever it might be, all I have to do is click on the style button and it updates that in my list. We have more functionality here. You see we have this more styles button. So rather than just changing the background color that shows, we can do more like change what the font looks like. So if we want to make it a little bit bigger and bolder and easier to read, or maybe since we're shading this in red, maybe we need to have a different font color, like a little bit darker so you can actually see it. We can do all of that. Another cool thing that we can do with this is icons. So if something is overdue, for example, we might want a warning message to show. So I can click on the warning label here and show that if it's overdue. We can change the alignment of the icons, whether it's on the left or the right. And actually, let me go back so you can see this being applied to this style, because that's where my dates would fall under. There we go. So we can see now that I click that warning icon that shows, we can change where it shows there. I can change the font color to darker so that it pops a little bit more, and even add some borders just to make that look a little bit better and just more visually appealing. So lots of that we can actually do with this wizard-like experience. So I can play around with all that, click save, and that applies that to my list so that everyone that has access will see these changes. So similar experience here with the different column types. So if I go to this choice field, again, clicking the drop down column settings and format this column, we see that for this one, depending on your data type that you're applying this for, you might have different options with the wizard. So for choices, I actually can do two different things. I have background colors, which will really just do what we did with the date column. It's going to shade the entire column with different colors based on your condition. The one that I like, though, for our choice fields is this choice pills option. So that makes it look a little bit cooler with a kind of rounded corners type look on the choice options. So you see when I applied that, we have transformers in blue and GoBots in green. Same thing with the dates. We can go to edit styles and change what happens. So it will recognize what options we have in our choice fields and allow me to change and set the color based off what the option is selected. So maybe transformers instead, I want that to be like a red, and GoBots to be a blue. All right, easy to switch around, and again, easy to go to the more styles and make different things bold, or put like a thumbs up for transformers, and then maybe let's go back to here to GoBots and more styles, maybe a thumbs down for that, right? Because that's no good. And click save, and it's easily applied, right? So you're kind of getting the pattern here. Same thing for our Boolean field. If we go to column settings and format, we have a conditional yes, no, so we can color code that column. So all of this, we don't have to mess with JSON. We can just do this out of the box. But what if we want to do more? What if we want to do more than just shading it and what's available to us here? Well, that's where we can take it up a notch with the column formatting. So to showcase this, I'm going to transition to this list we have that has 3 different columns. So we have a title, a before, and an after, which are both numbered columns. So what if I wanted to see and be able to check data from different columns? So maybe I want to know in this after field, is that value higher or lower than what's in the before field? Well, I can do that with column formatting. So what I'm going to do is open up VS Code, and we have just a simple 19-line block of JSON. Now, I don't want to get hung up on, exactly what this is doing and the ins and outs of JSON here, because all these samples are available on the PNP GitHub repo so that we can just copy and paste these in. But what I'll do is I'll just copy and paste this sample, and we're going to go back to our list. We'll click on our after column, go to those column settings and format this column again. But instead of using our wizard, we see an option here in the bottom left for advanced mode. So if we click that, that will open up a panel where we can actually paste in some JSON. So what I'll do is I'll replace what's in there now. I will paste in what I copied from VS Code, click preview, and you see as soon as I do that, I have an icon now to the left of my after value that's either up or down, depending on if the value is higher or lower than the before value. So I was able, with this little block of JSON, if we go back to the JSON, I'll kind of explain what's going on here. We have an Excel-like formula. So I just have an if statement here in the icon in this class saying that if the after value is greater than the before value, then show an icon called trending up. If it's less than the before value, then show an icon called trending down. So in this one little block if statement here that I have, I was able to determine and compare different column values and show different icons and colors based off of that. So pretty cool what we can do in just a little piece of code here. Now, what if we wanted to take this a step further though? So let me save this, because preview mode is something that's really cool. If you're trying something out and you're not sure, you don't want to break anything for your end users here, click preview first. It'll only apply for you. But once you know it works, click save, and then everyone will be able to see that. But what if we want to take this another step further? What if we want to know, well, what's the actual value difference between the before and after? That's another thing that we can do with column formatting. We can actually do some math formulas here. So if I open up VS Code again, we can again check to see if the before and after value is greater than or equal to, but we can actually get that difference. So that's what we're doing there. So if I copy this block of code and go back to our after column and go to column settings and format and replace what we have in there, you see now not only do we have that up and down trending arrow, we're able to tell that this after value is actually 5 more than the before. So really cool how we can mix and match and have math formulas. We can do comparisons, show icons, change colors and all of that, and really kind of change what this column was doing. All right, so we're going to take it up one more notch here. What if we want to completely change what a column actually is? So in this example, we have some social profiles. We have the title field, and we have a field to hold someone's Twitter profile. And if we look at this column, it's just a single line of text column. But what we're able to do with column formatting is take something that's just a single line of text column and transform that to appear as an image. So if we look at this sample here, again, each sample that you see is a building on, and it's getting a little bit more lines of code here. But all we're really doing, if you're familiar with HTML, is we're going to wrap the contents of what's in that column in an image tag. So we're just going to say, okay, take that Twitter profile URL, go out and get that image, their profile image, pass in whatever their Twitter profile name is, add it to this URL, and that will format it as an image. So if we save this and go back and click on that Twitter field, go to the column settings and format, in advanced, paste this block of code in, we see that it took that text, went out, grabbed our pictures, and replaced that text with that. Now, one of the important things to call out here, when you do use this, I didn't change what was there, what the data was. You know, that text is still there. It still has our Twitter usernames on there. I just changed how it's displayed in the list, right? So pretty cool that you can do that. Now, the last thing I'll show here for the column formatting before I turn it back over to David to talk about list formatting is how can we make this right now a hyperlink? So we already have it a picture. What if I want to click on that picture and have it open up this person's Twitter profile, right? So what we'll do for that is we'll just add one more little section of code here to wrap that image tag that we created and an A tag, which is a hyperlink, and have that go out to Twitter and pass in their username from that column. So we'll copy this, go back to our column and format. We will replace that. Click save. Now, nothing really seems like it changed here, but it did, because you see if I hover over it now, I have my pointer. So not only when I hover over, you might notice we have a nice little tooltip as well where it shows the username. But now if I click on Chris here, it's going to open up Twitter and take me right to his profile. So pretty cool, all of the different things that we're able to do with this column formatting. Now, what though, if you want to do more than just format one particular column? What if I wanted to transform how this entire view looks? Well, that's what David is going to show us next.
Excellent. Thank you, April. And I will start sharing. Now it's Teams. There we go. My turn. Teams to freak out. All right. You see me okay?
Yep.
All right, excellent. So awesome stuff. Just the beginning, amazingly powerful and flexible for column formatting. It doesn't end there. View formatting picks up where that left off. Now, just as an overview, view formatting also is using JSON, that scary guy with the hockey mask. Not so scary though, because you can copy and paste, and you can use that to learn more about it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. View formatting has a limited wizard experience. It didn't always. When list formatting came out, you had zero wizard experience on view formatting, in fact. So you can see the investment being made by Microsoft into this technology. They're adding that capability to get to know it, use it, and not even feel like you have to write any amount of JSON to begin with to start using it. So we'll see what that limited wizard experience looks like. Though it is similar to its cousin column formatting in that it can control the HTML of the output. Now, Will had brought out in the chat that if you define and assign a column format to a column, a list formatting definition to a column, it's attached to the column. But at the view level, we know that lists can have multiple views, and therefore each view can have its own definition that is separate. So think about how you can make that a little bit of a personalized feel or look and feel or experience depending on who your audience is. Maybe a personalized view is going to show something in a very specific way that's useful or valuable to you or your user. So you're not left with just one definition from a view perspective. So we'll see how that looks. You can control the HTML, you can control the CSS, you cannot control JavaScript. So if you're looking to kind of override this from a JavaScript perspective, create some simple methods or functions, there is not a mechanism for that at this point. You could certainly write some SPFX if you wanted to take it to that level and attempt to override it, but I would not recommend that. Although you can write custom styles and class names, right? So you could write an extension that overrides that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. But let's dive directly into some demos for view formatting. So I'm going to go back to our browser. We're going to pick up where April left off with the social profiles, but we've added a little bit of data here to the list experience. As we can see, we've got the title, which was there, and we've got the Twitter handle, which was there. We've now added country, state, and province. Now, this is a little bit of an off topic in that it's confusing when we go to create a new item because not everyone is going to belong to a state and a province. It's going to depend on what country you belong to, Canada or United States. And so you could use absolutely some formatting here, and I think we'll talk more about that later. You could also use Power Apps. So you always have choices. Just wanted to mention that you're never left with only one way to accomplish things. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that with the form formatting. But we do know that not all this information is necessary to be displayed at the exact same time. If someone's in the States, well, yeah, you want to know what state they're in. If they're in Canada, you want to know what province they're in. But it might be confusing to display both at the exact same time because someone who is not a geography major may not realize that you're not going to have a province in the States. Maybe it's someone who it doesn't live in either of these countries and doesn't know that difference. So there's sometimes those little pseudo nuances about countries that we may not know about other countries. It could be confusing. So what can we do to override this? How can we change this? Well, we're going to override the entire row. So we're looking to change this entire look and feel per row. It's not about the column anymore. And I could certainly assign a column formatting to this, right? I could come in and go to advanced mode and change this to the Twitter picture just like April did. And if I do that and then apply a view on top of it, nothing will break. So don't feel like you have to do one or the other. You could always assign a column as a fallback if you wanted, if you always wanted to show the Twitter picture, and then you could assign a view. So that way, if someone goes back to the all items view or removes the view formatting, they'll still get that nice clean picture look on the column. So you can combine it, but the view will always supersede the column. So it's good to keep that in mind. All right, so let's take a look at how we can change this. How can we change this to be a little bit more engaging? We know that there is some consistency to how Twitter works in its URL construct. We saw that with April's demo. We know that there's consistency in how you would pull back an image because it's going to use the Twitter profile. So how can we make this look better? Well, I'm going to bring over some JSON here that we started looking at with April. And you'll notice these get a little longer. We don't want you to be intimidated by it though, because really JSON is just hierarchical, right? Think of it as like a list formatting org chart, if you will, saying who belongs to who and who works for who, children or parental or maybe a family tree. And so they are getting longer, but they're very repetitive, right? So we see what she was including. We are also including in terms of some style definitions, right? Things just like border radius and margins, some very basic things. So don't get overwhelmed by it. We're going to give you some tools to use for free, and then you can use them as learning mechanisms as well. So I'm going to copy and paste that. Remember, I said all you got to do is know how to copy and paste. I'm going to come over, and the way you interact with a view and format it is through this mechanism right here, where you would normally select your view. You will drop down there and select Format Current View. Now you've got those options here, those wizard-like options, and they are pretty basic right now for View. It's not real robust as much as it was in the column experience, but it shows you, as I mentioned, that they're investing. Microsoft is investing in this technology because this didn't exist originally. There was no wizard-like experience for views. You can move around your layout here if you want, right? But we can change that. We see now it's applied just some shading. So I could add some additional rules for shading here. If column, and I can choose the column, maybe if state and compare it is equal to California, then I can add a condition, right? So I could change that color, etc. Very basic, not a lot of rich interactive experience here though. But if we switch over to the advanced mode, like April was showing us, same thing for columns. We even could access the columns here. This is a fairly new experience as well, kind of a one-stop shop. We can replace that view formatting. So I'm just going to select that. I'm going to delete it, preview. We see it takes us back to the normal experience, and I'm going to paste in that view formatting definition, and I'm going to hit save. Now what's happened is I've gone and I've grabbed that information just like April did for columns, but we've formatted it a little bit more. So now it looks nothing like a list. You wouldn't even know this is list data if you weren't told, but we've pulled back the image, we've made it bigger. We've made a call to action here with the button, right? We've added some shading here, some drop shadowing, if you will, to provide a little bit more depth to the page, some rounded corners, certainly made it a little bit more engaging from an experience perspective. And so I could click on this and it's going to open up Chris or Bo in their Twitter. Or one of our attendees, Hugo. You should absolutely follow him and learn more about what he puts out, which is amazing. Puts me to shame. But wait, there's more. You may be thinking, but what about that location? I still don't see you utilizing that. How would you display that? Well, we certainly could include it in just text. We could dynamically create a list formatting definition here for the view that if there's a state, shows the state. If it's a province, shows the province, and then shows the country. Everybody belongs to a country. But what if we could include some additional functionality? What if we could create like a call out to a service that's going to be API-like? Now, API stands for Application Programming Interface. Typically, you write code to make a request to an API and send data back, and that requires JavaScript. Not everything requires that. Sometimes APIs require just a call to a hyperlink, to a registered URL, much like we're doing for the Twitter photo here. So could we include a request out to a service that would provide us a little bit more engaging visual information about this person's location? Yes, we can. Let me copy and I will paste, select all, paste, and we'll go up and see what we're doing is we're making a call out to Google. And I'm going to preview this, and now I'm live pulling in a little snippet of a map based on their location. All I had was country and state and or province. And now I'm able to see that. So for example, when I click on Tennessee, in fact, it's not just there as a pretty face, right? It's actually functional. I click on Tennessee, it takes me to the map. We could include additional specifics on that URL if we wanted to, but it at least highlights the state and shows the general location of where Chris is located. Same with Bo. I can click on Colorado and it shows Colorado, shows the Denver area. So I can close those two things. Seb, same with Quebec. And so we see Hugo seems to span the entire North American region. He's that popular. So Ontario is huge, and so it takes up that whole space and shows us where he's at. But the point is now we're fabricating functionality where functionality didn't exist. We're writing zero code, zero JavaScript to do this, other than the hierarchical recipe, if you will, that a JSON definition is. It's really just a recipe for what we want it to do with the data that already exists. Now, again, I'm not changing the data that's actually in this list. So if I go into grid view, I can still make changes here. See, it just plopped right back over and showed me the content. I say exit grid view, and let me save that. And sometimes it gets a little refresh crazy. Yep, now we're back, right? So I had only saved the previous one without the map, and so it brings it back in. So we saved it. We're going to look at that a little bit later, but a great way to change the look and feel of your list without even giving anyone the indication that you're just using list data. Pretty powerful. Now, what else could we do in a list formatting definition with views? I am showing you a list here, and let me zoom in a little bit. It's nothing more than a representation of 4 grades. It's me and Andy went to school together. No, we didn't. In this case, we did, though. We went to school together, and you can see that we received numeric grades across 4 quarters. Now, this could be numbers that are represented across any number of time frames. It could be months, days, weeks, years, whatever. It could be financial data. It could be attendance data. It could be anything. Point is, we're using numbers across a time frame. And what we could glean from this is that we each started the year strong, and then we kind of got tired of school, and then I stayed tired of school, and Andy picked it up, and he got 90, 95 all the way at the end. I tried to pick it up, but the question I have for you is, we know that grades typically are based on averages. They're also based on conditional logic. For example, a 99 may be an A+, maybe for some teachers, right? Maybe not. Some teachers have a different scale, so it's very conditional. What we don't know is what the final grades were here. What was the final average grade across 4? Because oftentimes they'll take that totality of all our grades across 4 quarters, add them together and average them. So we need that average then to determine what that conditional logic is. Is it an A+? Is it a B? Is it a C? Et cetera. We don't know that just by looking at these numbers, and frankly, it's kind of boring to just look at these numbers, and then we got to do math to figure it out, right? We don't want to do math. We're trying to avoid it in school to begin with. Is there a better way? Yes, because view formatting not only allows you to change the look and feel, we saw a glimpse of how April showed us to do mathematical equations within our list formatting. We can use conditional logic to take those equation results and display something different. All right, what does that look like when I change this to a view formatting definition? I'm going to go directly into advanced mode, and I'm going to bring this over because I want you to see that it is significantly bigger. There is a lot more information that you're going to see when we compare numbers. So this one's very long, right? We've gone from very short to now over 500 lines of JSON. Notice I didn't say code, but I said JSON. Now, don't get overwhelmed, because in this case, the way I built this was I made it very repetitive. I built one little piece, and then I copied and pasted to build the next piece. I added more conditional logic that then took into account the second and first quarter, for example. And then I copied that and pasted and added the logic for the third quarter. And even then, I copied and pasted one quarter to represent the third quarter and just change some references to the other columns of data. So what does the result look like? I'm going to remove this, paste it, and hit save. And now we have a much more visually indicative information in front of us. I was able to take that grade per quarter, right? We see that hasn't changed. That was simple data, just grabbing the information that was there. So here's my quarter 4, here's my quarter 3, right? That's just displaying the data that was actually in the columns. That's where it ends, though. Everything else is custom. I have taken the average grade across the first and second quarter here for the second quarter. Then I've included first, second, and third, and you can guess fourth includes everything. Shows me the final average. Andy picked it up, beat me at the end of the school year, got the A. I'm coming strong with a B+, but not quite good enough. But I was able to then additionally use that equation result to create conditional logic to decide whether or not a 99 or an 89 was a B+ versus a B- or just a strong B, etc. Because those scales sometimes differ from teacher to teacher. So we're able to not only do mathematical equations, We're able to do conditional logic based on the results of those mathematical equations and provide a lot more value to our content consumers than just numbers and expecting them to go figure it out, right? Very, very similar. Remember, this is just 4 numbers of data. If I edit this, 4 numbers of data. From that, I was able to glean and determine all of these things. So very, very powerful. But don't call yet. We have more in store for you. We're going to take a look at view formatting. And for that, I'm going to hand the mic back over to my co-presenter, April.
All right, awesome. So, everything that we've shown so far has kind of been there a while. We could do column formatting, we could do view formatting for a while, but the new kid on the block here as far as list formatting is form formatting. So I want to give you a quick rundown of what this is and what we can do with it. So same concept, right? We're going to use JSON to transform our forms. So this could be your new form, your edit form. So it's going to allow us to override the look and feel. So some things that we'll be able to do is add headers and footers to our forms, and even say change our forms to multi-level layouts. We can show and hide columns. This isn't going to be a way we're not going to inject JavaScript. It's going to be the same thing as what we saw with our column and our view formatting there, is where we're just using JSON to kind of transform the look and the feel of our forms, right? So with that, let's just dive straight into a demo. Now, what I thought I'd start with is the demo that David just showed with the social profiles, right? So we went in here, we clicked new, we have a country option, but no matter what, it's showing state and province, right? So how do we make that maybe only show province if we choose Canada and state if we choose the US? This is something that we're now able to do with some new functionality. So if I click on the new button, like I want to add a new item into this list, we see that on the upper right-hand side, we have this new drop-down. Now, this was there before. We were always able to customize our forms with Power Apps. Now, one of the things that I love about this new form formatting capability is it's going to allow us to get away from maybe customizing with Power Apps for every little thing that we might need to do. Now, for those of you that know me, I'm like a huge fan of Power Apps, but it definitely has its place where it will be useful. But we shouldn't have to be using Power Apps just to make a 2-column layout in our list, or to add a header or a footer, or hide and show different columns. So that would be best suited just with the default functionality. And that's stuff that we can do now with this, which is really exciting. So we see for this to show and hide columns, we have this new option for edit columns. Now, I think this was there for a while, and it allows us to, we could always click to remove a column from here by unchecking it. But what's new with this is you notice if we hover over one of these, like say this province one, we have these 3 dots, and we have an option now to edit conditional formula. So notice that I have something in here already. Now, if you've ever built a calculated column in SharePoint, then you can use this formula. Really similar concept, and there's a great blog post out there about how to use this to show and hide columns with some examples so that you can reference later. But all I did is, a simple formula like we would do in a calculated column. I'm just saying if, and I'm referencing our field called country. So I'm saying if that equals Canada, then set the visibility of this province column to true. Otherwise, set the visibility of it to false. Really simple formula. I just put it there in the text box, click save. And we can do this same thing with the state. So I'm going to come to that and edit conditional column. And I have this already typed out in VS Code, the formula that I want. It's the same thing, except we're just checking to see if it's the US. And when you know that you have conditional column formatting applied here, if it's grayed out. So that's how I know easily. So now all I have to do is click save, and that will apply this to the field. So you notice as soon as I did that, our states are in the province disappeared, right? Because I don't have a country specified yet. So if I fill this out, select the US, for me, the state appears. If I change that to Canada, province appears. So really simple. We don't have to use Power Apps for this anymore. We can use calculated column type formulas, Excel expression type formulas to easily, based off of another column, show and hide a column. Really, really powerful, great functionality that we have here. So that's one thing that we can do. But what if we want to really transform this? So maybe we want a header here or a footer, or maybe we want this to have, headers if this is a really long form with different sections. That's something that we can also do with this new functionality. Now to demo this, I'm going to switch over to another list that has a little bit more columns so you can really see the power of this. So for this, I'm actually using Microsoft List, the asset management template. One of the cool things, if you've checked out these Microsoft List templates, is it has some column formatting applied out of the box. So you might notice that the status and the manufacturer, for example, have that choice pills formatting applied to it for me. But if we want to apply some form formatting, what we can do is we'll go to New. And something to note about the form formatting, to apply it, you have to click New. You won't see the options to apply form formatting, say if you were in the Edit screen. That's not going to be there. So the only way to get to it is by clicking on the New button and going back in the upper right-hand corner here. And instead of going to Edit Columns, we'll go to Configure Layout. So what this is going to give us is a panel like we had with our view formatting and our column formatting to put in some JSON. Now we see we have a drop down at the top. This is where we'll choose where do we want this JSON to be. Should it be in the header, the body, or the footer? So we actually have a header in our modern forms. If you notice, if I click on one of these items here and go to edit, it's actually taking the asset tag in this case, which is the title field, and it's putting that value in the header, right? And we have a footer that we can utilize as well. So if we wanted to transform what shows here, instead of just showing the title value, maybe we want to see more information in that header, that's something that we can do. So I'm going to go back here to New, click on that and Configure Layout, and I will go back over to VS Code, and I have this sample. Now, again, it's a little bit longer, right? So this is where we're getting into the kind of more complex territory of JSON to do some of these things. So about 148 lines, but I will put this sample out there on the PNP repo. It's not there yet, but I'm going to get it out there. So if you want to use this, you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and we're going to go back, and I'm just going to paste that header information in and click Save. Now, when I do that, nothing is happening here. That's because as part of this JSON, I'm actually doing some conditional logic to check if the form mode is new or if it's an edit form. So this header isn't going to show in a new form, but it will in the edit. So I just applied my conditional formatting. Now let's click on one of these and click on the edit button. And now you see when I do that, what just happened. Now we have a header that's pulling in the asset tag, the name, the manufacturer, all of this information, and even the image of whatever this asset is in the header so that I can see that. I have some color coding going on as well. So it's actually keying off of the status. So, if something is overdue or not, this will be highlighted in red so that I can easily see in this header area that, hey, this particular asset's overdue. I need to do something about it. So this is kind of combining all of the stuff that we just showed, how you can, take other values in different columns and show and change colors based off of that, and also how you can make hyperlinks. So that's what we have here with this email manufacturer. I can actually click on that, and that will open up an email message to the manufacturer with some information pre-filled in. So I can see I click that, it opened up a new email with the information about my order number, my serial number, and all of that, all in the header. So just an example of some things that we can do here. So we just looked at the header. Now, how can we maybe inject a footer? So what we'll do, we'll go back to that New again. We'll click on that Configure Layout option. And for the footer, I kept it simple. So this is only 40 lines of JSON. And I just want to put a little link in the footer to say, if you're having any trouble with this form or anything, contact the help desk and have it go open up Teams to start a chat. I actually think, ironically, this came up in the a question here. So this is one way with list formatting and form formatting that we can do that. So I'm just creating a hyperlink, and there's a shortcut here. This particular one, I'm actually using a call. So you could just replace call with chat, and that would open up a chat message to a particular user. So I'm going to copy this, and in our form formatting panel here, I'm going to switch my drop down to footer. And I'll paste in this sample here, click Save. And now if we see, if I click out of that and go back to New, or sorry, to Edit on one of these, we'll see we have a hyperlink at the bottom asking if I need help. And if I click on that, it would open up Teams, right? All right, so we've added a header, we've added a footer. Now, the last thing that we can do with this, probably one of the most important here, is we can transform what the actual body or the form itself looks like. So for this particular one, you see we actually have a lot of columns here. It's a lot of information to look at. So what if we wanted to break this out into different sections to be easier to read? That's something that we can do here with the form formatting. So I'm going to go back into this again, the configure layout, and we'll change this option to the body. Now for this one, again, it's only 39 lines. So really all you have to do to customize the body here is to break out this into sections. So I'm just defining 3 different sections. So I want to have a section with key information. I want to have a section with some details. And I want to have a section breaking out the owners of the asset and then the status. And then all I'm doing in there is I'm saying for this section, show these fields. So I'm just typing out the field names and defining within each section what fields to show. So if I paste this in and click save, and save again, and now go back, oops, I don't think I saved it correctly. Yeah. I didn't, hold on. I think I clicked preview instead of save. Okay, let me refresh that real quick. Here we go. So now you see that I applied that. What I did is I broke out my long form into manageable sections, so I don't have to have this endless scrolling. It made a multi-column layout as well, so I don't have that really small, narrow panel. I have a nice wide panel here on the desktop. This will respond accordingly based off of, if you're on a smaller monitor. But it's taking up, in this case, 4 columns. I have all of my different sections here for info, details, owners, and status. So I have everything that I can do here with the form formatting. So really, really powerful. Excited to show this to you all. I'll get these samples out on the PNP repo. There are some simple samples out there right now that you can look at to see how you can start using this in your forms. But with that, I want to turn it back over to David because he's going to talk about a little bit more advanced things that we can do with this list formatting.
All right, thank you, April. As we get into the end of the session here, we want to be sensitive to the time, so we're going to move a little quicker. But there are opportunities for you if you want to step it up. What we've shown you so far hopefully makes you comfortable and excited to start getting involved with list formatting, whether it be columns or views or the form itself. But if you want to step it up a notch, what opportunities do you have? Well, the first is understanding that even though it's not JavaScript, you can still get IntelliSense support. So when you start writing within VS Code, as you saw myself and April have done, you can get some assistance there within VS Code. Additionally, there's some auto deployment techniques. You notice we do a lot of alt tabbing, copying and pasting, and so sometimes that can become a little boring or annoying and having to do that rinse, wash, repeat. There's some auto deployment techniques in which you could utilize PowerShell or the Microsoft 365 CLI to, along with VS Code keyboard shortcuts, to auto deploy it out to your list. So you just hit a keyboard shortcut, deploy it. Now there's also a tool that we haven't yet included in our slide deck here, but we will, called List Formatter by another amazing community contributor that ties in with VS Code to your browser and lets you do inline editing and see it immediately. It's magic, quite honestly. I think that's how he used little elves and fairies to make it work. So it's pretty amazing. But there's also a bunch of resources that are available to you. So we had mentioned all these samples that are available to you. All of them are available for free. All of the ones that we showed off today are available for free and more. So if you go to aka.ms/list-formatting, you're going to be taken to the PNP repository. You're also welcome to contribute to this repository. If you create some really cool ones of your own and you want to contribute them back, we welcome that. We would love you to do that. We also understand, though, as Will had brought out in the chat, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming to do that because GitHub is, quite frankly, confusing and annoying and frustrating. We're going to show you how you can squash that bug or get rid of that fear here at the end. Now, there's also view formatting samples and column formatting and view. Remember, while we have well over 100 now and they're separated by view and column, the techniques you see in the column formatting is applicable in the view, because it's really just taking a piece of data and displaying. You saw that with our Twitter photos, right? We're using the same technique in both. So if you see something in column, know you could also use it in view and mix and match. Super, super powerful. There's also useful resources here by the community. Chris Kent, the godfather, the warrior, horse whisperer, if you will, is available and doing development call or demos on the PNP development call, general development call, which is every other Thursday. So if you go to aka.ms/M365PNP, you can find invites to all of those. And they're regularly including Chris and demos on list formatting because it's constantly improving. It's every other Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Central, or 10 a.m. Eastern. They're also recorded and always available. I'll do a screenshot summary blog post at the end if you only have like 5 minutes and want to just see a quick collection of screenshots. They'll be available there for you as well. And then April, what other resources do we have that we could access?
So one that I really like, if you want to get more into the weeds of the JSON here and what we can do with it and what it means, Chris Kent has a great session he did from the SharePoint conference a couple years back that you can watch the recording of. So he goes into all those details of, HTML elements and attributes and style types and everything that you could possibly need to know about JSON and how you can use that with list formatting. Absolutely.
Thank you. He goes way deeper than we did. If you really want to get down to the nitty gritty, it's crazy. He's amazing. All right. So just to wrap up, how can this truly be transformed? Hopefully you've seen the proof in the pudding so far and how it can be, but there is one cool thing that's been referenced already in the chat and how you can also take advantage of that, and that is through the list web part. We don't always want to send our content consumers to the list view to see things. It always felt like when we were doing these amazing creative experiences within SharePoint Classic, we would even build internet sites with them, and then you had to send someone to the list. It felt like you were sending them behind the curtain, right? Back to the kitchen. You wanted them to be wowed by the experience. The same thing can be done in the modern experience with the list web part. So I just have a page here, normal list page or a modern page. I'm going to look for the list web part that is out of the box, and I'm going to drop it, and then it's going to give me the option to select specific lists. So if I edit that web part, I'm going to say I want to see student grades, right? And now we see when I do that, I'm able to determine the list that I want, and it's retaining all of my view formatting definitions. I could even turn off the command bar. It's kind of a weird way you do it here. You turn it on to turn it off, right? You turn it on to hide it, which is kind of weird. It's like a double negative. But we see it gets down to just the title and then this little see all. So I can hit apply. Now I can also come down here and say, okay, cool, I want to add another one. These may not normally go together, but I want to include that social profiles. So now I see that. I'm going to edit this. I'm going to turn off the command bar there, and I'm going to publish. And now what I've got is almost like a quasi dashboard. I can combine these lists of different data with list formatting assigned to them, and I've done zero development from a true perspective, and I'm able to now create this almost custom looking dashboard that no one would even know is really just lists behind the scenes. So it really is truly more than meets the eye here, right? That transformer. Now, I know we are 3 minutes out, so I just want to thank you. The one thing I did want to mention is as you get more involved here and you start using some of those samples that we showed you, we had mentioned we'd love to have you contribute back. If you are intimidated by the contribution fear, I don't know what I'm doing within GitHub, I'm not sure how to do a contribution, and it's kind of scary. We want to tell you that there is an initiative within PNP called Sharing is Caring, and we will absolutely walk you through. If you go to this URL, and we'll include it in the chat, if you go to this URL, you can sign up for sessions that are live, hands-on, no cost, no recording, safe space, inclusive opportunities for you to come learn. We'll walk you through how to make your first contribution. We'll start you here. We recommend if you've never done GitHub, start here at first time contributor. If you're not even a developer, if you don't want to write code or SPFX, then you can move into community docs where you can learn how to contribute to the actual docs.microsoft.com ecosystem. You don't have to be an employee. You have the power. If you are wanting to get into development, we have a lot of other sessions that we're ramping up on: SPFX workstation setup, samples with NVM, presentation tips and tricks, maturity model, more than code with VS Code, which will include some of the things you've seen here, because as you can see, you don't have to write deep levels of code to take advantage of the tools available to you in VS Code. So please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out, connect with us on these sessions. We'd love to interact with you, but we appreciate your time here today. So I'd like to thank you, April. Any final words?
Yeah, thanks everyone. Definitely, if you want to contribute and not sure where to get started, definitely check out the Sharing is Caring site there, and we are happy to help.
And right on time, I think, right, Andy? Right on time.
Coming in at the end here, I have been live tweeting like a madman. This has been an absolutely amazing session. Thank you both so much. I know the chat window has been quite a buzz as we've been going through this entire presentation. I know you have blown quite a few minds with some of the content that you've gone through. So thank you so much. Really do appreciate you both being here. I know we're scheduled at 6:30. If you don't mind, maybe sticking around for a couple of questions. I know there were a couple that were kind of popping up. I know I'm going to stick around for just a few more minutes. But for those of you who are joining in live here this evening, thank you for being here. Check back with us next month for our March meeting. Sarah Hasse is going to be coming in and talking about women in technology. That's going to be a great session. You don't want to miss that one. I have recorded this session. We will post this on our YouTube channel here in the next couple of days. We'll get that out. Follow us on YouTube. And with that, I just want to, big round of applause. Like, you guys knocked it out of the park. Like, you need to take the show on the road. I guess we are on the road.
Right, yeah. Show me the road, any road. I'll take any road at this point.
Yeah, right.
As long as it's not in the house.
The only road I see is the one in front of my house, because I haven't left that very, very often. But no, thank you so much. This has been an amazing presentation. I know I learned a ton just trying to live tweet and keep up with it. I know we had Will Cooper. He asked quite a few questions. He did a presentation for us last year on the view and the column formatting, and some of the things you've shown here, I know, were really eye-opening for someone with a whole lot of experience doing this. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over. We'll do, a little bit of Q&A. I don't, if you have to go, take off, that's fine. We will post the recording, the materials, but again, thank you both so much for being here. Great demo, great walkthrough, really, really awesome. Appreciate you both taking the time to be here for us here in the Charlotte community. But I think this one went international. I think we had people from all over, so that's pretty cool. I know I'm really excited about that.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So I did live tweet a lot. I know there were a bunch of questions that were coming through. I will post answers to some of that on the Charlotte area SharePoint user group handle. I posted those underneath my handle at Andy Honeycutt. So I live tweeted through the event there. If you're on Twitter and you want to kind of go back and follow along with some of that. For those of you that were here live tonight, you've got the chat window. You'll be able to go back and go through some of this. I'm just looking to see. So Hugo says there is an advanced list formatting web part, allows you to add some custom CSS styles and animations to your list formatting, but that would take another 20 minutes to demo that one.
Yeah, I can reference to that though real quick. The key here is that allows you to override the styles that you can create in list formatting. So it's good to know, because you can actually create custom CSS class names in your list formatting. And you might say, well, why would I want to do that? Microsoft always says to not override the HTML you don't own, and that's true. But on a page-by-page basis, if you're able to inject some CSS, you technically own that HTML that you created in list formatting, and Microsoft won't change that. So what can you do with additional CSS that you couldn't just embed into your list formatting definition? Think of pseudo attributes, so animations with hover states and stuff like that. Super, super powerful. Hugo and I do an animation or an animation session together on that. That's based around Young Frankenstein called "It's Alive." So if you're interested in that, let us know. And there's a lot of power there, though.
I know I am personally interested with that. I'm gonna have to contact you offline, and we'll have to follow up on that one.
Yeah.
I know I had one question, and I kind of know the answer, but I want to make sure that everybody out there gets the answer to it. So we did a lot of this inside of a SharePoint list, but this also extends into a Microsoft list as well, correct?
Yeah, technically behind the
Yeah.
scenes, Microsoft List is SharePoint List, right?
Exactly.
So it's funny when it came out, and I'll defer to April a little bit here. She's more of an expert on it, but everybody's minds were blown. Thinking, oh my goodness, look at this new stuff, and we're like, new? Okay.
It's just
Yeah,
SharePoint
awesome.
list with list formatting applied. Yeah, and that asset management thing that I showed, that was a Microsoft list in one of the templates. So yeah, it's all the same.
And extending on that just a little bit, some of the customization we did, so there at the end, you brought it into web parts, but that's also going to extend into Microsoft Teams, correct?
Yep.
Exactly.
gonna
That's one of the things I love about it too, is like you can build like a lightweight Teams app, right? With just by hiding the Chrome there and embedding your SharePoint page with the list formatting, the list that you have on there. So it's really, really powerful in that extent.
So for everybody who's watching at home, what we saw here started in SharePoint, extended to a SharePoint page through a web part, and then through Microsoft Teams, we can tab that into a channel inside of Teams by bringing in the SharePoint page. And you're going to be able to enjoy some of the same customizations. In addition, you would also be able to bring in a Microsoft list as part of your Teams experience, and you'll be able to enjoy some of those same customizations, and you can meet your users where they actually work, which is really awesome. I really like that story quite a bit.
Agreed.
All right, just kind of blasting back through here real quick. Buttons. We can do buttons inside of this, actionable items inside of the list view, the column view, and the form.
Yep.
As well.
I mean, you saw fabricated buttons that we were creating, like with the hyperlink and stuff like that. But you can also connect it to kick off a flow.
And I showed like a button there. Well, it was an icon, really, like an email icon. But yeah, I've used the button approach for flows and stuff. So you don't have to click the menu and, 3 different clicks. You can just have a button that executes a flow right from there, or, whatever you need to do. So.
That takes me way back. I don't know if you remember this tool we used to use called SharePoint Designer, and they had this thing where you could do a custom action in the ribbon or in the menu command, and it was like one-click integration to like create that actual item to like stop, digging down through the menu. So to be able to drop it in line with either the row item or inside the view is really awesome.
The number one thing I've been using lately is the little code for the edit button. I don't know if you saw my little script thing I just put in chat.
Yep.
In classic SharePoint, you could add that in the list view. You can't do that in modern. And a lot of times you want people to go to the edit form, or you don't want them to have to go to click on the side menu. I put it on like every list now. I mean, you can make it look however you want, but I just throw on an extra column, which is an interesting thing because you think you're formatting the content. In some cases, you may have no content. I just add a field called form and stick that in there. It's not referencing any columns or anything. It's just merely a container to hold this button that I want to have.
Yep. Awesome.
Well, I think that's most of the questions. I think we've answered all of them. So I'm going to stop the recording. But once again, I just want to say thank you both, April, David, for being here. For awesome presentation. You definitely should take this one on the road. This is really good, and I'll let you both know when we get this posted on our YouTube, and I'll let the community know when it's out there on YouTube as well.
Cool. Thank you again for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
Thanks.